Just hold your horses. If you were anything like me when you watched Rise of Skywalker, I know just what you're thinking. What? Rey can fly now? Palpatine's back? Where's this story going? And why is everything moving so fast? This literally contradicts everything from the last movie, which contradicted everything from the movie before that one. I feel like we shouldn't be surprised considering they had no actual blueprint to follow for these movies. They threw George Lucas's story ideas right out the window and decided to give 3 different directors enough creative freedom for them to all make completely different movies that have so many differences. If you were to watch them backwards, you wouldn't be able to tell they were part of the same trilogy. But I'm finally going to sit down and go over the Rise of Skywalker. So much happened, and I just need to talk to someone about it. There's a lot to critique about this movie, but looking back at what J.J. Abrams had to work with after Rian Johnson made Last Jedi a flaming piece of bantha doo-doo, I'm just happy that they didn't decide to keep telling Johnson's story and run the franchise into the ground. Instead, he literally took everything Johnson messed up and tried to undo it, which I can respect. It wasn't a perfect movie, but it was better. I think that's the best word to describe this movie. It was 100% better than The Last Jedi, and that's what's important, right? But that being said, there are a lot of things wrong with Rise of Skywalker that I would love to talk about with you, like how Rey is able to fly, or how Palpatine came back and what it does to the original movies, or how Rey gets a 3rd yellow lightsaber out of nowhere. Make sure you watch until the end of the video because I want to hear what you guys think about all this.
Okay.
I'm going to go over the characters first and then talk about this massive plot that they squished into 2.5 hours. And I've got some more Rise of Skywalker videos coming out soon, so make sure to go down and hit that red button to subscribe so you don't miss anything. The Force Awakens was good. They introduced a great new story we had never seen before with the Stormtrooper turning good, and then they just threw it away. They did nothing with it, and they completed Finn's character arc by the end of the first movie. The Last Jedi tried to say he was going to betray the Resistance and tried putting him in a double love triangle with Rey and Kylo and then Rose? And then the one moment he had to be a hero and save the entire Resistance, Rose crashed into him because she wanted a kiss and ended up letting everyone almost die. Everyone. Finn in this movie was meh. I loved his new outfit, but he was just kinda hanging around. This trilogy made 3 potentially great characters as friends, and then they split them up throughout the entire Last Jedi. The originals were so great because all of our heroes were close friends working together to fight the Empire. This movie had each friend off doing their own side quest, half of which were pointless, and it just made us not care about them. So putting them together for the entire last movie was a good idea. They should have done this 2 movies ago. Phasma was sadly a wasted character. I love the new First Order bad guy though, since they made Hux a sissy and now technically he's a good guy because he hates Kylo Ren and wishes he killed him back when he found him unconscious in Snoke's throne room in Last Jedi. But I almost wish Phasma made a comeback. The Knights of Ren had some screen time finally, and even though their time wasn't utilized very well, they didn't really do anything. It was still cool to see him on screen. I wish Phasma finally got to go beast mode in this movie. She looked so cool and had so much potential before Force Awakens came out. Then she basically died twice and it would just be too big of a stretch for her to make a 3rd comeback, but she needed a redemption. And Rey was so overpowered in this movie. Like, they just started making up new Force abilities for her to use to show us how awesome she was. Force flying? Where did that come from? They seemed to add a lot of new Force powers in this movie just because they could. Maybe they thought it would make us all happy, but a lot of the time, they just caught us off guard and made more plot moments not make sense. Kinda like jumping to lightspeed through a ship just blows up the whole fleet. It makes you stop and think why nobody ever thought to try that before in all of the great space battles anyone has ever had. It's like, oh look, Rey can force fly now. Then the next day she lets her and all of her friends seemingly die by getting sucked into quicksand. Why didn't she just fly out or use the Force to move the sand upwards to save her friends? You know how much time that would have taken to save her friends? It literally was the amount of time that I'll stop this YouTube video for and wait for you to subscribe. And we're back. I don't know why she didn't do it. It's just, the more out of left field you get with this stuff, the more you contradict yourself in everything that's led up to this. The original trilogy was so amazing because, in the grand scheme of everything, it was still very much grounded in its own universe. These sequel movies are just all over the place and making up crap as they go. It's like they had no concept of the fundamentals of this world and how it worked, and just started throwing crazy stuff in because they could, and then it ruins everything that wasn't totally bad in the first place. And I didn't love that she called herself a Skywalker in the end. I don't know, just felt a little uncomfortable. Like, it's nothing special if whoever wants to can just call themselves a Skywalker. Now, Kylo, on the other hand, no matter how childish he came off in the beginning, I think had the best and most cohesive character arc out of the whole trilogy. Seeing him go from trying to do what Vader did and rule the entire galaxy and killing his father, to turning on his master and asking for Rey's hand to join him in the dark side, to having an identity crisis with a memory of his father and turning to the light to help Rey defeat their true enemy, was awesome. awesome. I loved watching his relationship with Rey play out. It was a little random for them to kiss in the end, and I think after the movie they tried to say it wasn't romantic, but instead was a thank you kiss. I have no idea. I think they were trying to please the Reylo fans, then saying, no, they didn't really kiss, so everyone else would chill out. But seeing him turn into Ben Solo was my absolute favorite part of the movie. We needed more of Ben running around with a blaster like his dad. I would kill to see a spinoff of young Ben with a blaster going on adventures in the galaxy. And it was really cool to see Harrison Ford come back. I wasn't expecting it, and it completely caught me off guard. And that scene has made me tear up every single time I watch it. It was awesome to see Lando. Billy D. Williams is the best for coming back. Such a cool dude to have in the movie. Really happy with that. It hit me hard with nostalgia every time he was on screen. And all the Carrie Fisher scenes were super emotional just because she had passed, but I think they did a great job with her character arc for what they had to work with. At times, it felt like her character was like an NPC and had limited responses, but that's literally all they had, and they made it work, so good on them. I'm glad they were still able to include Leia in the movie while respecting Carrie Fisher and her family. 3PO having a bigger role and more jokes in this movie was really cool. It just seemed like he had as many lines as they could possibly squeeze in. Zori Bliss was cool for her small time on screen, but my favorite new character in this movie is Babu Frick. Best character ever. I loved him so much, and he makes me laugh every time. I really enjoyed his little appearances. There's a few other big things I want to talk about that I kind of want to make separate videos on so I can go into more detail, but now I want to go over this massive plot that they thought was a good idea to squish down as much as they did. Surprisingly, I enjoyed the movie more the second time I watched it, which was the opposite with The Last Jedi. The Star Wars excitement rush I get on the first watch let me enjoy it more the first time, whereas with this movie, I think everything was so dang rushed, I couldn't enjoy one scene long enough before it cut to what should have been 15 minutes later in the movie. It should have been 3.5 hours long, or should have been split up into 2 different parts. Which I heard JJ wanted to do, and Disney told him no, so it's not his fault. He tried. This is on Disney. So much happened in this movie that sometimes there just wasn't enough time to digest everything. The whole thing, especially the beginning, feels so rushed, especially the first watch. So much happens in the first 5 minutes, it's just hard to follow because you're trying to catch up on everything you missed. I didn't really like how they decided to bring back Palpatine through a clone, apparently, who's been dead for the last 3 movies in the opening crawl. That's such a big thing that was kind of a little far out there, even for me. You just don't do it in the opening text. It's like they were banking on you having watched the trailers and put the pieces together yourself. Because if you had no idea what was going on and go back a movie to see what you missed, you would be even more confused. There's no Palpatine and everything in the movies contradict each other. So you would go back another movie to see what you missed because you still have no idea what's going on, and those movies contradict each other too. And now your brain's just gonna stop working. I don't know. I think they did that wrong. They needed more time or a part 2 or something to set that up better. It was just so far out of left field, especially to be breezed over in the opening text. Him being resurrected should have been the main point of the movie, and the Resistance has to stop him or something, and then he gets resurrected and they have to kill him off at the end. It just seems like they used Palpatine and said he was controlling all the other bad guys that gave Kylo motives in the first 2 movies to prove that all the movies in fact now have continuity. Which they don't, and that's not how they started out making these movies. I think their intention was different, then because they didn't have a 3-part story to follow and they gave the directors too much creative freedom, they flopped on the second movie and tried to end it with all the things they thought would please the fanboys best. Bringing Palps back just discredited everything everyone worked to fight against to lead up to his defeat during the original 6 movies. I kind of wish Johnson didn't kill off Snoke in The Last Jedi. Bringing the Emperor back just kind of pulled out the rug from the original trilogies for me, kind of like Holdo's jump discredits all the other space fights in the previous movies. But aside from that, and how fast Rey beat him by doing the same thing Mace Windu did to him in Episode 3, I loved the nostalgia in this movie. Every turn there was a little bit of the originals, and while it felt cheap at times, it still gave me that feel-good, nostalgic feeling. But you can't depend on that to carry your entire movie. The fights were so much better in this movie. Lightsaber duels were still a little slow and subpar, but the rest of the action was great. The end battle was really cool, kind of a blown-up copy and paste of the Return of the Jedi end battle. The Falcon showing up with all the extra ships was really sweet, but it was such a missed opportunity. I can't believe we didn't see any cameos. The Ghost from Rebels was there, Mando's ship was there, Zay Versio from Battlefront was there. Why would you not give us some quick cameos? So disappointing. Such a great opportunity to tie the Star Wars universe together. And the planet-killing Death Star laser under each Star Destroyer just felt like the one-upping they've been trying to do this whole trilogy. They made this big deal about how everyone's gonna die and there's no way to win this, but when they actually start shooting them, they blow up so quickly. They're made of paper. A Y-Wing bomber shot at it a few times with its lasers, and it just exploded. No effort at all. They didn't even try to make these things resistant from being shot at. Meanwhile, Palps was going full Harry Potter Dementor and sucking the life force out of Rey and Kylo, which you can do apparently. The Force Ghosts were super cool in the end talking to Rey. That made me so dang happy to hear all their voices they brought back to speak to Rey. Really awesome there. Although I heard they brought all the actors in full costume and makeup and shot them on video, so apparently they just ended up not using the shots, which is kind of sad. That would have been even cooler to see everyone come back to their roles on the big screen. Don't know why they didn't do that. Probably didn't have enough time. And also, how on earth did Kylo become one with the Force when he died? That's not just something that happens when you die. Yoda sent Obi-Wan out to Tatooine at the end of Episode 3 so he could learn from his old master Qui-Gon on how to become one with the Force after he passes. Because that's not an easy thing that you can just do. Luke could have taught Leia, that's understandable, but Kylo should have just died, not become one with the Force. And where did Rey get a gold Darth Maul lightsaber from? Can somebody explain that? The whole movie just rushes through all these big things without any explanation at all, and I really didn't like that. I did like that JJ basically used Rise of Skywalker to put Rian Johnson back in his place. It's now like Rose and Finn's stupid love fling never happened. Rey actually has a backstory now. We got some Knights of Ren closure, kind of. They didn't do much, unfortunately. I don't think there was any time for them to do anything, but it was still nice to see him on the screen finally after they were teased so hard in Force Awakens. Poe finally gets something to do and got to spend some time running around with the gang. JJ even threw in a little, "A Jedi's weapon deserves more respect," after Rian Johnson had Luke toss his lightsaber over his shoulder. And Johnson just came out and said he didn't care about the universe, and I'm just still blown away that Kathleen Kennedy would let this man make a Star Wars movie. In Force Awakens, JJ teased about Rey's parents and then handed the baton to Rian Johnson for The Last Jedi, and he took it and tossed it out the window and said, "Nope, Rey's a nobody. Your parents were nobodies." Then JJ comes back and catches that baton out of midair and goes, "Yeah, but that's because they wanted to be nobodies. She's actually Palpatine's granddaughter." I think Rey's character was just a little underdeveloped just because Johnson threw her backstory in the trash during Last Jedi. It's just these three movies don't work together, not like George Lucas's movies did. I wish they took the time to explain Palpatine's return, where the massive fleet in the ice came from. I'd love to know why Kylo turned to the dark side. I mean, when this movie wasn't rewriting The Last Jedi, it was just throwing more nostalgia in our face than we could handle or trying to satisfy our fanboy wants. I think it was better. With what he had to work with, I think JJ did a good job. There was still a lot of flaws and things that contradicted each other, but overall it was better than I expected. They just needed more time. I think there needed to be 2 parts. But let me know what you think of it. I'm curious. I'll be in the comments responding to people, so come say hi and let me know. I hope your quarantine is going well, but thank you for watching. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day. And until next Saturday, I will see you in the comments. Peace.